Here in Nashville, Tennessee, if you go to the doctor's office, like as not, you may see a woman sitting there in a burqa or a hijab. And if you try to take a cab from the Nashville airport, it's probably going to be a Somali driving the cab. How does all this come about? Well, if you ask them, you'll find out very simply that they are refugees. And how do refugees come to America? Well, we don't pick them. As a matter of fact, we don't really have much to do with that at all, because you see, it is the United Nations that determines who a refugee is and where they get to go to. Now, the United Nations sounds like a warm and fuzzy kind of thing, good for all humanity, so why isn't this good? Well, you see, it turns out that the OIC, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, is very big in dominating the United Nations and its agenda. So it turns out that Muslims are applying Sharia law as to who should be a refugee or not. It's not a religious organization like the Vatican, and the OIC is not like the EU just being a political organization. It is a religious political organization consisting of some 56 states. And they act in concert, one as the Ummah, which means they apply the Sharia. Muslims dominate the application process, and here's where Christians and others get harmed. You see, the criteria is that the person should have a well-founded fear due to persecution based on race, religion, and politics. Well, have you ever noticed how you can't really get a straight answer from a Muslim about the entirety of Islam? Well, you see, Muslims claim that there's no harm in being an apostate from Islam. What will they tell you? You can't find anything about apostates in the Quran. No, you don't. You find out about killing apostates in the Sharia and the Sunnah, the Hadith. So therefore, we have people who believe that apostasy is a crime, but in public say, oh, no, it's not a crime at all. So after a OIC, Muslim-dominated selection process for refugees, when they come to America, things can be quite good for a refugee. They'll be a citizen in 5 years. There are cash stipends, all sorts of social services from the federal, state, and volunteer organizations. I've even been there when the ACLU gives refugees lectures on how to demand their rights and how to work the system and do it well. So the United Nations runs refugees, and the OIC, or Muslims, run the UN. This has got to change. This may seem obvious when I state it, but why can't Americans choose who comes to America? And since Christians are getting the shaft here and harmed, why is it that churches cannot demand that it become a political issue? Why can't a church member, why can't a Christian ask a congressman running for Congress, why do we let the United Nations choose who's a refugee? Why can't we pick and choose? This seems obvious to me. Now, the churches do get involved in the refugee business, however, but in a way that's not so good. Catholic Charities is the one who brings in most of the refugees here to Middle Tennessee. Catholic Charities as a whole over the nation made about $2 billion. That's billion with a B. Last year, bringing in Somalis and others into America. Now, you would think that other churches might object to this, but what they try to do, it seems, is simply to get in on the take as well. So, meanwhile, back in the Middle East, as the Christians are remaining silent, Christians suffer with poverty and persecution and rape and other such things. This has got to become an issue for the churches. Now, you may be saying, I'm not a Christian, I don't care about Christians. Let me reframe this argument for you then in an ethical consideration. It is Islam that persecutes the Christians, and you may be an atheist, but why do you choose to make the ethical choice of being silent about the persecution of people? Your silence supports the oppressors. Meanwhile, the oppressors get a free ride to come to America and get all the freebies. So whether or not you're a Christian, this has to stop. We need some sovereignty here. So let's have the UN out of the refugee process in the United States. Let's have the United States choose who we want to have as refugees in this country. Thank you.